The Conjuring. A few years ago when I saw this film, I wasn't the biggest fan of it. I kind of thought it was an okay horror movie with great imagery, but 3 years later I finally understood how much of a horror masterpiece this film is. And my original reason for disliking this film may be unknown. It could have been from a lack of maturity slash kind of knowledge about what makes a good horror film, but I've had a totally change of heart about this film. First up, The Conjuring is directed by James Wan, the man behind the first Saw film, Dead Silence, and Insidious Chapters 1 and 2. And though the only film I haven't seen from his filmography is Dead Silence, I've loved all of his work up until this point, and The Conjuring is very much an accumulation of all his work combined. So the movie opens with Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga playing Ed and Lorraine Warren investigating a haunted doll case, and this sequence kind of proves an example for how the rest of the movie plays out. It sort of has this bravado to it. It knows when and where to scare you. It builds up enough suspense and doesn't rely on cheap jump scares. It's very confident and knows exactly what it's doing. And that's just fantastic to see from a horror movie. The style of it is very James Wan, so if you've seen any of his other films, you kind of know what it's like. However, it's not as far out there as, let's say, something like Insidious, where that movie, it really depends on the viewer's enjoyment of the style if they end up liking the movie or not. For me, I am a huge fan of Insidious. I think it's one of the best 21st century horror films, and it still gives me the creeps. But if you're somebody that didn't like it and is worried about watching The Conjuring, that for the reason that it'll be a little bit too far out there, don't stress too much. The style isn't as in your face as it was in Insidious. It's very much held back. It's still prevalent, you can still tell James Wan had his hands all over it, but it's not as weird as Insidious was. So the film takes place in the 1970s with a family moving into a new home only to be disturbed by an unknown entity, and with the help of paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren, the family looks to reclaim their home. I know this film sounds very cliche, but I gotta say the story itself is very interesting, and the way it's set up is absolutely perfect. I mean, from subtle kind of instances of paranormal behavior to going all out batshit crazy, it really was set up perfectly to scare the shit out of you. I appreciate so much about this film, including its imagery. I mean, once again, James Wan proves that he is the master of creating scary images. If, for example, it was on showcase in Insidious, and now it's here again. And the look of the demon, though we don't see much of it, which I do like, it is very frightening when you actually see it on screen. And as with Insidious again, James Wan makes another frightening old lady. Apart from a couple scares that played it a little too safe, much of this film is just executed excellently. From the camera zipping every which way, it really made the scares fresh. And the film didn't rely too heavily on jump scares, which I did appreciate. Not that they make me scary, it's just very kind of, it's a generic and easy scare. Most of this film kind of frightens you by its imagery once again. And although by the end of this movie I wasn't all that frightened, it does have a lot of things going for it. Now, most horror films nowadays usually leaves fans like myself pretty disappointed. They're rushed out for the sole purpose of making cash. But every once in a while, a horror film comes along that makes great uses of its story and doesn't rely on wooden acting. This film used everything to its advantage, from a cohesive story to great acting for the most part. You could just tell that this film was made with precision and care, and for that reason, I'm giving The Conjuring a 9 out of 10. Alright guys, this has been my review of The Conjuring. If you enjoyed this video, please smack that like button as always, share it to your friends, and subscribe for more videos. My next review will be of The Conjuring 2, so look out for that in a couple of days, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.